How many ethical norms are there? Norman Geisler takes an example. Corrie ten Boom tells how she lied in order to save Jews from the Nazi death camps. So arises a big question: is it ever right to lie in order to save a life? Geisler finds 6 answers to this question based on ethical systems around the world. Number 1 is Antinomianism. Antinomianism, which literally means against or instead of law, holds that there are no morally binding laws and therefore everything is relative. Lying is neither right or wrong. There are absolutely no laws. Antinomianism asserts that lying to save lives is neither right or wrong. It affirms that there are no objective moral principles by which an action has to be judged right or wrong. An action needs to be decided on subjective, personal or pragmatic grounds, not on any morally objective grounds. And therefore, all moral actions are relative. Number 2, generalism. Lying is generally wrong, but there are no universal laws. Only general law exists. They are not laws either. They are simply general principles. Generalism claims that lying is generally wrong. As a rule, lying is wrong. But in specific cases, this rule can be broken. Since there are no universal moral laws, so therefore, saying lie in a given situation is morally right. If the results are good, then the lying in the case is morally justified. 3. Situationism. Lying is sometimes right, but there is only one universal law, and that universal law, according to situationism, is the law of love. Love is the only absolute. In fact, lying to save a life is the most loving thing to do. Hence, lying is sometimes right. Indeed, any moral rule except love can and should be broken for love's sake. Everything else is relative. Only one thing is absolute. Thus, the situationist believe that lying to save lives is morally justified. Number 4, absolutism. Lying is always wrong. Unqualified absolutism believes that there are many absolute moral laws and none of them can be ever broken. Truth is one such law. Therefore, one must always tell the truth even if a person dies as a result of it. Truth is absolute and absolutes cannot be broken. Therefore, there are no exceptions to telling the truth. Results are never used as a rationale to break the rules, even if the results are desirable. Number 5, conflicting absolutism. Lying is forgivable because there are many conflicting laws. Conflicting absolutism recognizes that we live in an evil world where absolute moral laws sometimes run into inevitable conflict. In such a cases, it is our moral duty to do the lesser evil. We must break the lesser law and plead mercy. For instance, we should lie to save the life and then ask for forgiveness for breaking God's moral absolute law. Our moral dilemmas are sometimes unavoidable, but we are culpable anyway. God cannot change His absolute moral prescription because of our moral predicaments, but it is necessary that in the case of conflicting absolutism, we do what is lesser evil. Number 6 is hierarchialism. Lying is sometimes right. There are higher laws. Hierarchialism holds that there are many moral absolutes and they sometimes conflict. However, some laws are higher than others. So when there is an unavoidable conflict, it is our duty to follow the higher moral law. God will not blame us for what we could not avoid. Thus, it exempts us from responsibility to follow the lower law in view of the overriding obligation to obey the higher law. Many graded absolutists believe, or hierarchialists believe, that mercy to the innocent is a greater moral duty than telling the truth to the guilty. Hence, they are convinced that it is right in such a cases to lie in order to save the life. Now, what is my personal position, or what is the position that I am going to take in the series of the lecture that I am giving? Number one, it is cognitivist, which means that moral judgments are facts of knowledge. Number two, it is based on divine command theory. Because our ethics is based on the Bible, we firmly believe that Bible is God's revelation to the world, and that Bible reflects God's moral perfection, and therefore Bible constitutes the moral standard of human beings. Number third, it is based on revelation of God, and therefore it is prescriptive. But it does not mean that we are totally against reason. We believe that revelation of God is reasonable and does not violate the principles of logics or reason. 4. Our ethics is deontological, but it does not mean that we are not concerned with consequences or teleological aspect of moral action. We believe that if the rules of God are faithfully obeyed, it produces maximum goodness for the humanity as a whole. Our ethics is not based on virtue ethics. Although it is true that virtues exemplified in the Bible according to the fruit of the Spirit is the most desirable pursuit, yet we do not believe that, or I do not believe that, moral and rightness of an action must be judged by the development of those virtues in a person. I believe that obedience to God's rule produces virtues of the Spirit. Now the biggest question, how shall we respond when there is a conflict? Is it okay to lie when there is a danger on life? Hierarchialism of Norman Geisler argues that there are many moral absolutes and they sometimes conflict. However, there are some laws which are higher than others. And therefore, when there is an unavoidable conflict, it is our duty to follow the higher moral law. But I think the hierarchy of moral absolutes are not so evident in the Bible. And therefore, to determine what shall be done when the conflict arises should be answered as follows. Number one, every situation has different aspects associated with it. Even two similar looking situations can be greatly different from each other. And therefore, in a given situation, the moral duty which has priority over other duties must be observed and carried out. Number three, if there is a situation when one or two duties seem equally important, then the doer is free to choose the duty that he thinks is most appropriate. And I believe God will not judge him for choosing the either one. And also I want to add an addendum here. If the agent chooses to act which is less prioritized than the other duty, then he is guilty of acting wrong. And therefore it is important that the moral agent needs to view the situation objectively as possible and thus should not allow his own biases and prejudices to color the situation. Therefore, in a given situation, it is the duty of the moral agent to analyze the entire situation objectively and determine the conflicting moral decisions that he has to make and choose which he thinks is right in that situation. And I believe God will not judge him for not doing the other one. Thank you. God bless you. Take care and see you soon.